Hey guys, my name is Alex and welcome to my channel. Now today's video is gonna be quite hot because I'm not gonna lie, I am quite passionate about the topic. Men's discrimination. Now I can already see outraged and curious at the same time faces, but I'm here to tell you that men in this society have issues too. Meninism is a word used to describe a men's rights movement that appeared in early 2000s. What's interesting is that if you look up the information on Wikipedia on Meninism and feminism and compare them, you would see little is written about Meninism and how much is written on feminism. And although I get it right, this movement has evolved relatively recently, but literally as I'm writing this script, the word Meninism is being underlined as incorrect. Moreover, I haven't heard about Meninism being taught or discussed in schools, and except for a couple of men bragging about their life to their friends, the topic remains majorly uncovered. So, is men discrimination real, or is it just men complaining about their life again and again and again? Although there is a lot of skepticism around the topic, with some people saying that this is not an issue at all.
Have you ever thought about how hard it is to be a straight white man in a straight white man's world? I like my men's rights activists like I like my superhero movies. Go f yourself. It's just the truth.
Some people went as far as protesting against the lecture on gender equality, in particular about mass discrimination, in the University of Toronto in Canada in I think it was 2013, with someone pressing the fire alarm and the lecture not even being ended. As a man, I can tell you that I'm being discriminated against all the time. Now, the extent to which men are being discriminated against depends on the society you're in, but let me just take you all around the world and show you how men are being discriminated in different places. So in Ukraine, which is, for all of you who don't know, a country I'm from, military service is compulsory, with men having to serve for 1.5 years once they're aged 20. Living in horrible conditions, being treated like pigs, in many cases literally coming back home disabled because they were beaten up in the army, or with at the very least the psychological trauma because for 1.5 years of their life they weren't in control of it, which, believe me, does harm men's mental health. Now, if you think I'm exaggerating, try living in a prison for 1.5 years of your life just because you were born with a penis. To me, it seems like a discrimination. Speaking of birth, let me now switch to America, where the majority of guys in the 21st century, and it's 2017 right now I'm talking about, are still being circumcised when they are born. Now you might say, what's the problem? Well, the problem is that there isn't really any particular reason for it. Now, if you haven't seen the operation, just Google it, and if you can watch it without feeling sorry for the small babies who are being performed the operation at, then you're just a heartless asshole. Now, despite some people saying that it is compulsory for men's hygiene, let me as a man tell you that as long as you wash your penis once in 3 days, you're gonna be perfectly fine. In fact, in those countries where circumcision is performed only when needed, in extremely rare cases, boys grow up perfectly fine without any infection developing in their penis. However, I think it is simply inhuman to cut off a man's body part without any possibility of getting it back when the person is simply too young to understand what's happening and the purpose of it. As a matter of fact, for you to know, circumcised guys feel less pleasure while having sexual intercourse because the skin on the head is used to protect the head itself from rubbing it too much against the boxers, the underwear. And when it happens, guys just become insensitive and they don't get nearly as much pleasure as those who are uncircumcised, because that skin that is being cut off has thousands and thousands of nerve endings which add up to the pleasure. And so with 1,000 nerves being on that part of the body, you can imagine how painful in itself that operation is. Majorly, the problem lies in the fact that men have emotional problems with it. Sure thing, when they're young, they don't really understand what's happening. But as they grow up and become teenagers, they start comparing themselves to other boys. And when in the changing room, they see uncircumcised guys. Believe me, as a man, I personally know that you can't help it but think what it would feel and be like if you weren't circumcised. Now, if those things don't convince you and you're lucky enough to live in a country where the military service isn't compulsory and where the circumcision isn't performed at birth, just the overall society's attitudes towards men will do. For instance, in case of emergency, who would you evacuate first? Children, women, and elderly people. That's right. Only after those come men, and frankly saying, from the very childhood I never understood why, except for the reason that women gave birth, which the majority of women don't do anyway. That's right now Jack is lying there on the bottom of the ocean thinking how true this situation is. I told you not to fucking let go. Now he used this movie to prove that men are being discriminated against. That's not what we need for media. Secondly, nowadays, somehow violence from women against men is perfectly fine, but not vice versa. If there is a domestic argument and a woman slaps a man or hits him slightly, that's perfectly fine. However, if the same happens to a woman, wow, that's violence, that's domestic violence, and she has the whole right to go to the police station and get that guy imprisoned or at least fined. Now, as a man, if you go to prison because your wife has beaten you up, well, at the very least you will feel ashamed, because from the very childhood you were taught that women are weaker than men, even though neither physically nor mentally they aren't. Within my surroundings, many of my friends who are women are stronger than me, just like there are men weaker than me. And simply saying that the person's strength is identified just by their gender is very narrow-minded and too simplistic for the reality of our world. Disclaimer, I'm not saying that the violence against women is normal. What I am saying is that the violence against men isn't. Instead of putting up posters saying stop violence against women, why don't you put up a poster saying stop domestic violence, without any gender being attached to it, without women being a victim and man being the one who attacks and being violent. Thirdly, if you're a man, if you're going out with a girl, the expectation is you have to pay for her.
Trying to just take a girl out you're not even considering dating, you should still pay, but if you're going out with a girl, you better be paying or I'm gonna slap you in the face. If your girlfriend doesn't insist that you not pay, then that's awesome and you have a great girlfriend and you should treat her super well. 9 times out of 10, you should be paying for stuff, buddy.
And I get it, it comes from the times where men were working and women were sitting with babies and cooking in the kitchen, but nowadays times are different, and somehow teenage boys are still obliged to pay for their girlfriend, even though that's not even theirs money. They don't even work, that's the money of their parents. And that's exactly why Meninism is being hated by many women, especially radical feminists, because it directly hurts them. They like having their expenses covered by men that have absolutely no problem with it. Thank God I don't have to deal with issues like that. Okay, I think that will be enough bragging about my life. For this video, there are so many ways that men are being discriminated against in this society that one video is simply gonna cover all of them. However, if you are interested in the topic itself, you can watch Red Pill, which is a documentary made by a woman, by the way, who used to be a feminist. Now she's more for gender equality, and she explains the problem with Meninism, the problem with feminism, and why people who are feminist and Meninist can't work together to solve the problem and bring gender equality, which I believe in. Just to clarify, I'm not saying that women don't have problems, they very much do, but what I am saying is that men have issues too. The point of this video wasn't to say how bad and hating women are, because the truth is that most of them are very nice, loving and beautiful human beings who deserve to be loved and respected. However, the point of this video was to show that men are just as lovely and as beautiful as women are, and that we also have feelings and we want to be accepted and respected by our friends, relatives and society in general. So I would encourage you to like this video if it was useful or interesting, and if you have a friend who might be interested in the topic, don't be afraid to share this video with them. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys!